Welcome to The Explainer. So, what if a really fundamental rule from abstract math and a core Quranic idea about creation were actually describing the exact same thing? Today, we're diving into a fascinating concept that connects the logic of infinite sets with the metaphysics of the human soul.
So, are these two completely separate worlds, or could they be, reflections of the same divine logic? We're about to see how a strange and really powerful rule from mathematics, the Axiom of Choice, might just be a perfect mirror for how the Quran describes our very existence. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Everything starts with a choice. We're going to see how the single, fundamental act of selection is the origin point for both the mathematical universe and the metaphysical one.
First, let's get our heads around the math part. Imagine you have, say, an infinite number of shoeboxes, and every single box has at least one pair of shoes in it. Well, the axiom of choice basically says that it's possible to create a new collection that has exactly one shoe from every single box. And here's the crazy part. You can do this even if you don't have a rule, like always pick the left shoe. It doesn't tell you how to choose. It just says a choice is always possible. It's this idea that something new can exist just through the pure act of selection.
Okay, hold that thought about infinite choices. Now let's see how that very abstract idea reflects a foundational verse from the Quran. Surah 4:1 says that humanity came from a single soul, and from that soul its mate was created, or you could say it was selected. This is the origin story of duality, of two-ness, all coming from one single choice. So the source material here frames this as the axiom of divine choice. Creation starts as this act of selection from the one, and that act is what differentiates the undivided soul into two. You get male and female, light and fire, mercy and wrath. The idea is that creation itself is a choice function of Allah.
But, you see, this initial choice doesn't just happen one time. It actually sets the stage for a huge cosmic trial, a repeating cycle that has a very, very specific purpose.
And you know what? The parallel just keeps going. The axiom guarantees the possibility of infinite choices without actually defining them. And in this framework, divine action is seen in the same way, as a process of initiation and constant repetition. So creation wasn't just a one-and-done event. It's a process that's repeated over and over across endless cycles.
But this isn't just chaos, right? It's not random repetition. The Quran says that every single thing is counted and numbered precisely. You can almost think of it like a divine audit of every choice ever made by creation, a literal count of infinity.
So, here's the key takeaway. This whole cycle has a point. The trial, according to this framework, finally ends when every single possible choice, good and evil, has been expressed and balanced out. That infinite set of possibilities gets closed and creation goes back to its original state of unity.
Now, where does this whole cosmic trial actually happen? Well, it's not somewhere out in space. The battlefield is right here, inside the human self.
So think of this internal battleground as having three main players. First, you have darkness, or shaitan, which represents pride and fire. This is the force that distorts our choice. It's all about self-selection without submission. On the other side, you have light, the Rooh, or the spirit. This is the corrective choice, the one that's divinely guided. And finally, you have the vessel itself, the clay body or the nafs. That's us. That's the testing ground where the battle between these two forces plays out.
Okay, moving on. This framework then reframes prophets in a really interesting way, not just as historical figures, but as archetypes that fulfill specific, almost mathematical functions in this whole cosmic cycle.
So each prophet is seen as playing a specific role. You have Musa or Moses, who is associated with water. He symbolizes the correction of that fiery pride through submission. Then comes Isa or Jesus, who embodies the light, the divine word made real. He proves that true choice comes from God's will. And finally, you have Ahmed, which is a name for the prophet Muhammad. He represents the perfected vessel of clay. In him, the forces of light and water finally merge, and that completes the cycle, returning the soul to unity.
So, after all that, this vast cosmic framework, what does it actually mean for us right now? Well, this is where it all comes down to a single, very personal point. According to this framework, that potential for a perfected state, for remembrance and return, it's not something out there. It exists inside every single person. The Ahmed within is described as this eternal point of return to Allah, a hidden potential for unity that's basically imprinted on every soul.
So let's just pull all these threads together for a second. In mathematics, the axiom of choice says infinite potential choices can exist even without a rule. In the Quran, Allah's single creative choice creates duality, kicking off this whole cycle of trial and return. And in this metaphysical law, our human free will operates inside that divine count. And our journey is what ultimately leads to completion, restoring unity. See? Each domain is describing the same fundamental story. A single choice sets in motion a world of potential that has to, in the end, return to where it came from.
And really, there's a verse in the Quran that just perfectly sums up this whole idea. It captures the essence of the entire cycle we've just walked through: an origin in the divine, a journey through a trial of choices, and an inevitable, guaranteed return to the source.
And that leaves us with one final, provocative thought. If our existence is this repeating cycle of trial and return, all designed to close an infinite set of choices, then the real question isn't if you're on the loop. We all are. The question this framework asks is, which path of that loop are you choosing to walk right now?